Assalamualaikum. What I am going to discuss with you guys today is about the examination of speech. One of the command which is many a time given by the examiners, and many a time our students are not able to exactly perform that examination of speech. It's a very simple thing. If you examine the speech the right way, the basic learning objective of this examination is to correctly identify where the problem lies, like in that speech area or otherwise where the problem lies. So how the things start? We start with that whenever you will be encountering a patient in whom you are going to examine his speech or her speech, the first sentence, the first thing which you communicate with the patient is basically you would be asking the name of the patient. So as you will be asking the name of the patient, say I ask one person who is sitting here that what is your name? So there will be three responses. What kind of these three responses gonna be? A patient would be coming up with an answer, my name is Jamil. That's a simple, straightforward, clear-cut response. But what three odd responses can be there? A person can respond like, my name is Jamil. So what has happened here? The problem is with the phonation. So this is dysphonia. This suggests dysphonia. There can be another response. I ask the patient, what is your name? And he come up with an answer, may I am Jamil. So what he has done here, may I am Jamil. So अब यहाँ पे क्या problem हो रहा है? What is wrong here? Patient is having problem with the articulation. There is a problem with the articulation, and what muscles are involved in that articulation? There are four group of muscles involved in articulation. When a sound is produced from the vocal cords, these muscles give quality to that voice. And these four muscles are pharyngeal muscles, your soft palate muscles, then tongue and lips. So if a person comes up with that kind of reply, it will indicate that a patient is dysarthric. The third response gonna be dysphasic response, aphasic response. I will be asking the patient what is your name, and he won't be able to understand it altogether, and he just come up with an answer. I just went to Lahore. I came from there. I met a friend there. I have asked him what is your name. So that is clearly telling us that he is not able to understand what I am asking from that person, and that could be suggesting that there is some problem in the sensory system, like the patient is having problem in the perception. The second situation can be that as I will be asking him what is your name, he will be trying to speak his name, but he won't be able to speak appropriately, or he would not be able to speak altogether. Like he would be replying, so there would be difficulty in uttering words, and that would suggest us that problem is in the motor areas. So just by asking this one question, this leads you that whether a person is dysphonic, hoarseness of voice, it may be secondarily to recurrent laryngeal nerve injury. There can be sometimes some tumor, there can be sometimes some mass, there can be some CVA that would be affecting the ninth nerve. Again, would be patient presenting the same way. So that would be the response, dysphonia, or the second response gonna be where the problem is with the articulation. A person would be having, then he would not be having problem with the phonation, but he would be dysarthric. That would show that there is problem in the supply of the muscles which are responsible for producing voice, and these muscles are supplied by the 9th, 10th nerves usually. So there is some problem in those muscles, either in the muscles directly or the nerves which are supplying those muscles. And finally, the most important thing is obviously that dysphasia, which will probe further. So now we have to examine the speech of a person whosoever is having that dysphasia or aphasia. That can be motor dysphasia, that can be sensory dysphasia, that can be global dysphasia. Like altogether, neither a person is able to perceive things nor he can speak. We will be calling it global dysphasia. Before we just seek these details, you guys must be very clear in your mind that where this speech area lies. So remember, the motor speech area or the Broca's area that lie in the frontal lobe, and that sensory area or vernix area that lie in the temporal lobe. So these are the two lobes, and then the fibers which associate, which connect these two lobes are known as association fibers. Before we ask the patient certain questions which are basically the components of speech, we always ask the person whether he is right-handed or left-handed. How it will help us? It will help us in a way that those people who are left-handed people are having speech area, 50% of those people are having speech area in the right lobe, and 50% are having that speech area in the left lobe. While those people who are right-handed people, 95% of those people will be having the speech area in the left cerebral hemisphere, and only 5% would be having that speech area on the right side. So always ask about the handedness. It gives you clue that where the dominant area is lying. And whenever somebody asks you this question, particular question, that what is the definition of dominant lobe, the simplest definition is the lobe which contains the speech area is known as the dominant lobe. So what are the components of speech? We'll move ahead, and then we'll be basically focusing on three components mainly. However, classically there are 5 components. One is naming, second is comprehension, third is repetition, fourth is writing, fifth is reading. How you are going to perform these tests over a certain patient, what kind of questions you will be asking. Naming, when you want to understand whether a person is having problem with the naming, or we call it nominal dysphasia or aphasia in certain situation, we would just be asking from the person what this thing is. And if somebody is having problem with this naming, he is having nominal dysphasia, he won't be able to name that thing. He would be telling us a lot of things, he would be speaking a lot of sentences and words, but he will not be able to name that particular thing. He would be telling us that this is a thing which is used for the writing purpose, well this thing is a thing with which we write on the paper, but while naming this thing, he won't be able to name it. So we call it nominal dysphasia, and it is seen in many a times in certain patients with cerebrovascular accident strokes when we are performing examination on those patients. Then the next component. The next one is repetition. We'll be asking the person to repeat a word or a sentence. Like I would be asking him that please speak no, if, and buts. In Urdu, I would be asking him kab, kahan, kyun, or kaise. And what will happen? How the person going to respond? If somebody is having problem with the repetition, I would be asking him bolo kab, kahan, kyun, or kaise, no, if, and he would just talk like kab, 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 or if. So he would be repeating the same things, a certain person. He won't be able to repeat those things. So we will be like having an assessment that there is some problem with the repetition. Remember, if a person is having simple isolated problem in repetition and everything else is fine, there is just single problem with repetition, then extremely highly likely the lesion is lying in the association fibers, and we call it conductive aphasia or conductive dysphasia. If there is complete loss, we call it aphasia, and if there is partial loss, we call it dysphasia. Then the next component is comprehension. How we will be giving the command? It's usually a 3-step command. We will be asking the person that place, touch your forehead, your nose, and then your ear with your fingertip. Like he has to do this thing, then he has to touch his nose, then he has to touch his ear. So this is what we call comprehension, usually a 3-step command. A person having these dysphasias might not be able to comprehend. At the end of these 5 components, I will be telling you that in which different situations, which different problems will arise. Then the fourth component is we will be asking the patient to write down a certain thing on the paper. If a person is educated one, can write down things, we'll ask him to write down a certain thing on a paper and we'll assess his writing skills. So in certain situations, in certain lesions in that particular speech area, a person may have bad writing skills. He won't be able to write down things appropriately. And finally, we ask the person to read out things for us. We show him a paper and then we ask whether he can read things or not. So these are the 5 components. Whenever you are going to examine a certain person, you have to follow the same rules. You will be assessing these 5 components, and that way you can reach to conclusion where the lesion is lying. So if a person is having problem with one, comprehension, second, repetition, like a person cannot repeat things well, a person cannot comprehend things, both lesions can be there. A person can have a fluent dysphasia, means Wernicke's dysphasia, or we call it sensory dysphasia, or a person with Broca's dysphasia will also be coming up with the same thing. He won't be able to comprehend well, he won't be able to repeat the things in the right way. So this is not the basis how we can differentiate between these two things. Obviously these 2 components will be affected in most of these people. Then there will be one catching point, and then catching point is how to differentiate Broca's from Wernicke's. The person with Broca's aphasia won't be able to speak altogether, or would be finding it very difficult to speak few words, but those words will be the right words. Like if you are asking a certain thing from that person, as he can understand things, the words will be the right words, he would be finding it difficult to speak those words. But in the setting of that Wernicke's dysphasia, a person will not be able to interpret things, so grammatically he would be speaking things with fluency, but selection of those things, or basically as he won't be having that good understanding, so he would just be talking irrelevantly. The talk will not be relevant. Now we need to understand a small difference between 2 other brain lesions, very closely connected with this Broca's and the second thing Wernicke's. So the one closely connected with the Broca's area or motor dysphasia is known as transcortical motor aphasia. If a person is having transcortical motor aphasia, again the lesion is in the same lobe, in the frontal lobe, but there is a small portion of it where a person is having that lesion. And person will be able to correctly comprehend, he would be able to do the repetition. But the word he would try to utter or speak, he would be finding it little bit difficult. So that's the only thing we'll be seeing in these cases. The fourth thing is transcortical sensory dysphasia. Now this thing matches with the Wernicke's aphasia or sensory aphasia. In sensory aphasia, the component of repetition and this comprehension both are not adequate. Patient is not able to perform these both components the right way. But those people who are having this transcortical sensory aphasia, these people are basically having kind of compulsive repetition behavior. They just keep on repeating words, but they can obviously they are having good repetition. Rather they would be having kind of compulsion to repeat certain things. And talking about finally the conductive dysphasia, I have already told you that conductive dysphasia is a term used for the association fiber problems. The fibers which associate the Broca's area with the Wernicke's area. When there is a problem in this particular area, the sole problem which you will be seeing in that patient is he won't be able to repeat things the right way, he would be having problem with the repetition. Just adding to this thing, whenever some examiner asks you that you need to tell us more whether this person is having affected dominant lobe, there are few other tests. For this, remember a mnemonic of AALF ALF. The A stands for acalculia. He won't be able to calculate things well. Then the next A stands for apraxia, constructional apraxia, alexia, and the next is left-right dissociation, and the final thing is finger agnosia. So here the thing is, after acalculia, it's basically alexia. It's not apraxia. Constructional apraxia we see in the setting of chronic liver disease patients, where we are assessing their hepatic encephalopathy, whether they are in that phase or not. So we do that thing. Here we would be assessing for these things. So you can add these things as well. You can ask question related to these four particular things. He won't be able to recognize his fingers in a proper way, and that we know as this finger agnosia. Left, right, he won't be able to recognize these things right way. Calculation will be stuck. So these are the things which just are additional things that if somebody asks you a question that whether a person is having problem with the dominant lobe or not, you can add these things then, right? So this is how you examine the speech in a certain person. Remember, always check all these components, because only after checking all these components you can clearly identify where the real lies, whether it is in the frontal lobe, it is in the temporal lobe, or it is in the specified parts of temporal or frontal lobe, or whether it is in the association fiber, or the problem is with the articulation, or the problem is with the phonation. Thank you very much.